My name is Joseph Maes, but they call me Joe. The most important thing to me is family, mainly because the way they raised me. They showed me a lot about my culture, and they told me a lot of ways how to live in the wilderness. I was raised more out going hunting and fishing than in the city, even though we lived in the city. But they showed me a lot about how to be out in the wilderness, because that's the way we like it. We love nature, so that's the way I was raised. We went hunting and fishing, and my dad showed me how to clean deer, rabbits, squirrels, pheasants. We hunted all different type of game, and we loved the wild game, the taste and everything. And my mom, she was another part of that helped me a lot. She showed me a lot about the way to cook meals, the way to hunt for herbs and things like that. I was 19 just before I went in the service. My dad is Southern Ute and my mom was Native too, but I didn't know what tribe she was from. But I was taught not to show my heritage or talk about my heritage because the way people resent Native Americans back in my time.
Right on the edge of the zone, that's just a
Vietnam.
chap.
This is a map that I used in Vietnam. If it wasn't for my parents' training, the way they raised me up, I wouldn't have survived. A lot of the skills I used when I was in Vietnam. And my dad always say, use common sense and you will survive. And when he meant by common sense, to notice everything around you, and if it didn't feel right, don't do it. So that's the way I survived Vietnam, is by the way the skills my mother and my dad taught me as I was growing up. Hunting and fishing all kicked in. There's a survival mode. But the difference with hunting and fishing, you can get out of the elements, but in Vietnam you couldn't. You had to stay in the elements. And that was the roughest part. You couldn't move, you couldn't do nothing. You just had to stay there in one place. And the people you're next to, you get so close to them, and in one moment they're gone. So at the end, I didn't make no more friends. And after I made E5, I couldn't make friends, because I couldn't make the right decisions if I had a friend. So I had to be alone. And that's the way my tour was, always alone. When I went to Vietnam, I was assigned to the 25th Division, ended up in Cu Chi with the 1st to 27th Wolfhounds. It's a battalion. And when I got there, the battalion was out on a mission already. When I finally got orders to go out, I went out on a Huey to resupply our company. And then when we were flying up in the air, it was the first time I ever been in a helicopter, and it felt so great to smell that sweet air, still all that jungle down below. And my pants legs were flapping in the air, and the helicopter waves sound like drums to my native ears, and the helicopter felt like it looked like an eagle. We came in, and they were under fire. And the next thing I know, they start hollering at me to throw the ammo and food out, and I start throwing the ammo and food out. And the next thing I know, I was throwing bodies on the helicopter again, and these guys were young guys. The boots weren't even dirty yet. You could tell they was brand new guys, FNGs. And I said, oh my God, it could be me next. And we started loading them up, and then this sergeant called me and pulled me off the helicopter, and I got my gun, my weapon and everything. We ran to the side, and he said, stay here. And the next thing I knew, he left me right there on the bank, and then the firing still kept going. And all I could do was, I was still shaking, scared about everything what happened to me, and what I'd seen. The next thing I know, we're moving up, and before I knew it, I was just staying in the back. I didn't move up all the way to the front. And the next thing you knew, the battle was over and it started getting dark. And I was still shaking and everything. He says, Joe, it says you're in FNG, you'll be the first one to walk out on the trail to our night ambush. So I'll be walking point. I said, whoa. I said, man, I was scared already, and then they were going to put me point already. And I guess because there was no more new guys, they already got messed up. I ended up going on a night ambush, and with this mission, it lasted 73 days. We had no change of clothes, no hardly any meals. We were moving from place to place, and every time we got in a firefight, things like that, we kept moving. Even though the wounded, we would ship them out, the dead would ship them out, and we keep moving, we keep moving, we keep doing our day and night ambushes. It was a constant pressure. You didn't know how it was going to react. People don't understand what war is.
Joe's mom wrote him 365 days while he was in Nam. His last letter, he didn't even receive it. It was returned back to Joe. So once Joe got back stateside, I believe he went to Fort Hood in Texas, is when he got his last letter.
A lot of times, the kids were really friendly during the day. It was so nice to have kids around you, selling you Cokes and things like that. But at night, they would...
Joe didn't like kids. Joe still doesn't like kids, especially babies. I didn't know why. I was young, I was naive back in the day. It was all due because of Agent Orange. What effects the Agent Orange would have on the baby. Also, the main reason why he didn't like children is because in Nam, the youngsters there would come out with Cokes and ice. Where they got the ice and Coke from, heaven only knows, but at nighttime they were the enemy. It was really hard. Joe only changed our children, we have 2 children, and he only changed the diaper once, one for our daughter and once for our son.
When I started my book, I was writing it for my kids. The book wasn't really a book. It was just some things that I did for my kids to understand what happened to me in the war.
He's a good father, he's a good dad, but at the same time, I basically had to raise the kids. I had to tell Joe, little Joe is going to leave in 4 years. He was going to be in high school. In his senior year, because he got out in 3 years, I told him, this is your last year. If you're going to be able to talk to Joey, you need to talk to him now. You only have 3 years. And his comment was something to the effect of, why am I going to fall in love with him when he's just going to leave me? And it's like, he's not leaving you. You need to tell the kids you love them.
You believe in your mom and dad because of the physical things you can see and believe in. I mean, I believe in the Creator, God, and all that, but your mom and dad, they're there. I can see them, you can feel them, you can talk to them, and you get answers. God and the Creator, you worship, but you don't really get the answers from it. You can feel it, but you don't really get verbal. So to me, my parents is the one that I believed in that helped me through the war. Everybody that I've seen that got killed didn't say God. They said Mom.